Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. I have been gone a while. I pretty much took the summer off. I was with my kids. They're back to school now. As you know, fall is now in full swing. And I've taken some time to reflect because, as you know, over the last couple of years, 2 years, it's been a trying time to be a health influencer or to be a natural health practitioner or expert or guru or whatever you want to call it on the internet. We know what's gone on, and a lot of people won't agree with me. A lot of people maybe think what has happened and what is happening is for the greater good. But I've done a lot of reflecting. I have been sort of chased back and back into a hole. So my channel's not monetized. I've never made a cent from all the advice I've given out. I have well over 800 videos here on YouTube. And yet I was being censored, backed into a corner. And I didn't know where to go from there. I didn't know whether in my heart to say, okay, I just won't talk about that subject. Oh, here's another one. I won't talk about that one. Yep, I won't talk about that one or that one. Okay, got it. We can't talk about, all of these big world events. We can't talk about health. We can't talk about the financials. We can't talk about what's going on. We can't talk about the Great Reset agenda. We can't talk about anything that we're feeling if it goes against a narrative that's set out, by those in charge. And I've worked hard on this channel. I've put a lot of time into it. And the reason I created this channel was because it was my little corner of the internet, my private, very small escape where I could talk about something as I healed, where I could talk about my healing as I healed, my journey, what happened to me. Where I could share my experience and my knowledge so that it doesn't happen to others. And it became a place where I expressed my, my innermost thoughts, my intimate thoughts on health and healing and spirituality and, everything from the physical, the mental, and the emotional. We know that when we're healing the whole. We're not healing any single one of those parts. We're healing the whole. And so it's been a place where I do get vulnerable. I do share things that maybe aren't shared by mainstream media. I share things from my experience, my research, my understanding of the world, and what I truly believe. So I speak from my heart. And all of that was threatened over the last couple of years, especially when I look back on it, right in 2020, nobody knew really what was going on. We were terrified of a virus, and everyone came together as you do when you're scared or helpless or feel overwhelmed, and look to somebody to save you, look to an authority to know more than you, know better than you, and make a decision. And as a collective, we embraced the governments around the world who were in power and the experts who stood up and told us what to do. But those of us who are already in the natural health field or who have already had our own horror story that we lived through, we saw very early on the dangers of what was being proposed. And we saw very early on the lack of studies and the lack of accountability. And voicing that, though, became an easy target to find a collective enemy, right? To point the fingers, that's the person, that's why this is happening. If only those people would listen, then we'd be out of this mess, which was never true. But at the height of the hysteria, I would say maybe last Christmas, December, January, February, at the height of the war on the unvaxxed, is really when I started to get concerned. People were losing livelihoods. People were losing family, friends. I myself, we were in a position with our family where we didn't know that they would even see us anymore or spend family holidays together or see our children, or there was a lot of pressure to comply, and there was a lot of pressure. Um, it was just the world was fragmenting, and people were choosing sides and making an enemy out of those people who were the whistleblowers, the canaries in the coal mine, the messengers. And nobody had to listen to them, but it didn't have to be such a violent reaction towards them, such a negative. But people wanted an enemy at that point, and so it was an easy target. And a lot of times, if people had said yes, they want this to be right, they say yes, then the ego gets involved. Once the ego's involved, people don't want to be wrong. And once they don't want to be wrong, they sort of double down and they stand behind the choices that they made. And they ignore the people who are standing there and saying, are you sure? What about this? Look at this. Like the ones that have the info, the people who at that point, the real humans, the real stories of people who had been harmed, and they were being ignored, and people were being demonetized, and people were being canceled and dehumanized. And anybody who's ever been a follower of history knows where that can take us, knows where that destructive road goes. And so that was a massive concern at the height of the hysteria. And we may get there yet again, but it looks like people have backed off from that, right? People have taken a step back, breathed a breath, and allowed some of this us versus you to come together again and say, we're all human. If someone's sick, they'll just stay home. And other than that, if you're healthy, you can go out into the world. But I'm not certain that we're going to stay there. And I really do have fears about where this fall and winter may take us. But when you see signs of, and propaganda supported by governments in the news to denounce a certain group of people based on their ideology or their race or their religion or their thoughts or anything like that, you do want to be concerned about that, because that's going nowhere good. And that's nowhere that I want, my children to think it's okay to do that or to allow that to be done to them. So we have to take a step back, and that really caused me great pause. I was fighting at that point because I felt like I was being attacked by so many and denounced by so many, and so I was on the defensive, and that's also not who or what I want to be, right? I just simply wanted to say no to what was being offered to me, because it didn't make sense to me from the research I did, from what I know, from what I understand, and from my own personal resonance. I don't say yes to something unless it resonates with me. I've learned that lesson the hard way. So, we forget it can be as simple as that. It can be just as simple as saying, no, thank you. We don't have to turn everybody and make everybody in the world believe what we believe, or show them, because they might be on their own path and they might not be ready to be shown. Because when we go down that path, as many of us who have gone down that path know, you can't unsee truth. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. Once your eyes are opened, once the curtain is pulled open, you can't just close it and pretend you didn't see what was back there. So some people aren't ready, and some people, it's going to take more time, and some people will never be ready, and some people don't want to be ready, and they like the reality that they live in, whether it's true or not. It's constructed for them, and it makes them feel safe. And so if that's what they want to live in, then that's okay for them as well. But for those of us who have truth and see truth and want to share truth, the best you can do is to be an example, is to take your own personal power and to live in the world congruent with your own values, your own beliefs, and your own wisdom and intuition, and make choices that you can live with if something goes wrong, right? You can live with the consequences of those choices. So I couldn't live with the consequences of the choices So I didn't choose to do what was being asked of me. And that's really what it comes down to, right? You take responsibility for your choices and the consequences or the lack thereof of those that come along with them. And so although I'm super concerned still about where we're going, I'm glad we're not like in that hysterical moment of last December, January, and February. And I'm hopeful that just continuing to take responsibility for my own life and my own actions will be an inspiration to others. And if it's not, at the very least, it will be respected. And if it's not, and I am still condemned or shunned or canceled or whatever it is, I can live with those consequences because I feel at peace from my decision. Because even in our own healing journeys, we often don't look inside until it's the last resort. We often first go the allopathic route. We go to a doctor, we go to an expert, we go to these people. We look left, we look right. We ask for help. We want to give our power to somebody who knows more because it's so overwhelming to us. And only when we have our own crisis, whether it mental, physical, or emotional, that cannot be helped by those experts. And sort of we're falling, we're in free fall, we're looking for help, we're looking for hope, and we don't find it. And ultimately, as we're falling, we grab out to all these different people, all these different experts, all these different modalities along the way. And we land and we realize it's us, right? The only way out of the hole now, because we're at the bottom, is to look inside, to say we're the only ones here now. We are the expert. We are the healer. We are the one with the answers. And we have to build things like self-reliance and dedication and willpower and courage and intelligence and emotional intelligence and the ability to look within and the ability to get real and try to make our assessments, make plans, make a plan, make an assessment, face reality, and depend on ourselves. In essence, it's a growing up. Somebody who hits rock bottom and becomes the hero archetype, ultimately goes from a child to the hero, to the adult. It's a growing up. It's a maturation process. It's going from somebody who looks out because everybody else knows more to somebody who looks in and garners all those qualities in themselves that they need to become the hero and to get themselves from the bottom up and out. And so I think intuitively, we all know that we're our own power. We all know that we are in control of our lives and our destiny and our relationships and our health and our finances and everything, right? Our education. But what we do is, because all of that is so overwhelming in a fast-paced moving world, right? That we can't keep up to technology, the knowledge, everything that's going on around us. We outsource our power. We outsource our power to the education institution. We outsource our power to hospitals and doctors. We outsource our power to the CDC or the NIH or the FDA. We outsource our power to governments to tell us about our regulations and when we've consumed too much and when the world, is at risk and when we need to turn off our gas or turn down our gas or stop drinking from a plastic water bottle. We outsource this until the very last moment, right? We do it. We do everything that maybe we know intuitively that if we looked inside, we might say to ourselves, I'm drinking one too many bottled water. Where is all this plastic going? Am I just throwing it in my recycling bin and thinking they've got it over there? Or am I willing to look at this empty plastic bottle and take responsibility for myself and say, I don't want to outsource the planet to others. I can make a change. I can go get a reusable water bottle and I can fill it every time, right? I don't need the government or the parents of the world to tell me. I can tell myself. And so we've lost our ability, I think, to regulate ourselves, to make tough decisions ourselves. And it's much easier to go along in the world just doing as we've always done, or doing, what's easiest, instead of reflecting and taking responsibility, personal responsibility for our choices, our actions, our relationships, our health, our life. And I really believe that we have lost the ability to take personal responsibility and to take personal power. The reason why this is so important to me, particularly with what's going on in the world, as we see systems collapsing and as we see systems fracturing, right? We see a right side and a left side. We see a warring sides. We see sides that are saying, if you're on this side, you're against us. If you're on this side, you're against us. You're either with us or against us. And we see this political sidedness playing out to the world's great destruction and to humanity's great destruction, because we're all humans and we're all in it together. And there are experts on both sides. There are experts, on the right, on the left, in any political narrative, and telling us what to do, trying to control the narrative, trying to control the power, trying to control the money, trying to control what institutions exist and which don't, and what they look like, and how they can gain from it and benefit and financially gain from it. And this is causing humanity's great decline, great illness, I would say. So for those of us suffering with personal chronic illness, we know that we are in dis-ease, right? The body is in dis-ease. The mind, right, is fractured. The heart is fractured. We are not living in wholeness, in unity, which means you need to be complete in yourself first. You need to learn how to take care of yourself, have responsibility, how to love yourself, how to be compassionate to yourself, how to be kind to yourself, and how to honor yourself and your values. Where if something comes up, like what we saw, over the last 2 years, are you going to get this vaccine? And if not, this is the terrible type of person that you are. This is the type of terrible person, and you are killing, you're putting in harm the rest of humanity. This is the messaging, right? This is the group think that sort of snowballed. When we know that's not true, the data doesn't suggest that or support that. However, it was never about the data. It's about what each person needs. The person who went along with it needed acceptance. They needed the group and society to accept them. There's a lot of people pleasers. There's a lot of people maybe in their childhoods who weren't accepted for who they are. And so they don't like to make waves. They don't like conflict. They don't feel comfortable standing up against authority. They didn't grow up that way. That wasn't instilled in them as a child. And then there were other people who thought, this isn't right. You're taking away my personal sovereignty, my personal freedom. How come we're not looking at the dangers or the harms or anything going on? And they said no. So there was the yes and there were the no. And both of them were looking for different things. The people who were on the no's, like myself, were looking for justice. We were looking for personal freedom and control. And other people were looking for acceptance and belonging. And so those are all needs, human needs that we have. It just depends on where you are on the spectrum as to what needs you needed fulfilled at the time. And that's ultimately what group you fell in. And we forgot that we are on team humanity. We aren't separate. We're all out there looking to get our our deepest needs met, because that's how we feel whole, right? That's how we feel the wholest. Some people needed that sense of belonging and community and connection and approval. And some people needed a sense of justice and freedom and to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves, to be the champions for those who are getting harmed, for those who can't speak for themselves, right? For the generations that come behind. And that need was important for me. That need was important, but I understand the other side. But what's happened is we've been pitted against each other, and I've been watching this over the past years. But I've been silent over the past months because I'm really coming to terms with, what happened to the smaller population of no's, right? We all have our own internal yeses and no's, and we've lost that. We've lost that as human beings, the ability to look inside, to trust our intuitioner, to trust our knowing, to trust our knowing in everything in the world, to be able to research and then deeply look inside and use our inner wisdom. What's being offered up, right? When that was being offered up as a choice, whether you were going to do this or not, when that was the choice, you either had a strong no or a strong yes come up. And some of us didn't even look inside. We looked around. Some of those people looked around, well, what are they doing? I don't trust myself, right? I need somebody else to tell me. But for myself, and many people who have been at the bottom and who have had to look inside and realize that the reason they were at the bottom, the reason that they are where they are at that very dark, desperate, horrific moment in their life, was because they had lost their way, and because they no longer were able to look inside and trust themselves, to trust their intuition, to trust their wisdom, to trust that inner knowing, the truth, the values, to feel the values that you have and that are important to you and that are worth dying for, fighting for, standing up for, and to realizing that you are the creator of everything in your life. And for those of us who have been there, at that moment, at that precipice where they must look inside, the hero ultimately, right? Where it's, I mean, I was a writer, so, right up until the all is lost moment, and it's the dark night of the soul is what they call it, where the hero loses everything. It's then that they must dig down the deepest. They don't look left and right. They don't look to authority. They look inside. That's what makes that journey complete, is that the hero now looks inside to find the solution, to find the answers. And I feel that I want to leave that type of world to my children, to have them be the heroes of their own story, to be able to trust themselves and trust their intuition in a world gone mad, right? In a world that's fighting, in a world that is out for monetary gain and political control, and where the individual is not considered. So I want my children to not have to learn that lesson the hard way. I want them to know that they can trust themselves. And if something's being offered to them, whether it's a cigarette or a drink or drugs or a sexual encounter, or to jump off a cliff or whatever it is, that they don't have to take it because the group is taking it. They can say no. They can discern the feeling that doesn't feel right, and they can act on that because they're not so desperate for approval, and that they can meet their own needs of love and approval, and they don't need to rely on the group in order to do that. So that's what the value that I want to leave to my children, and the value I'm still teaching myself. This is the principle that I've been learning. This is the path of the healer, right? Is that you come to a point where at first you want to heal. You want to be healed. You want someone to help you heal. You're desperate for anyone to help you. You want to be healed. And at some point along the journey, you realize that you are the healer and you're the only one that can heal you. So all that to say is it's been a long reflection. I can't say I like where the world is going. I do think we are on the verge of collapse in many different institutions, because I see the same repetitive patterns that I do in the medical institution, which I already have seen all the shadows and the corruption. I see it playing itself out in the financial institution, in the in the government. I see somebody may say that's a conspiracy theory, but when you've seen it enough times play out and you can move the veil, move the curtain, and see what's behind the curtain, right? It's not the almighty, all-knowing wizard, but it's a little fat man in the Wizard of Oz who doesn't know anything. And Dorothy, our hero, has the answers inside her. She can click her heels and go home. All along, she always had the power. So all that to say is that I've thought long and hard about it, and I thought, I don't want my children to feel less than because of a choice that I made or they made not to put something in their arm. They're valuable human beings. They're healthy, they're vibrant, they're creative, they're amazing. And so am I. And so nobody needs to feel less than for making a choice that resonates personally with them. When you see the corruption and when you see the data, and when I have things to say about what's going on in the world, I've been pulled back, I've been reined in, I've been censored on social media. And I had to determine, and I have to determine, whether that's okay with me, right? Whether I censor myself or whether I don't censor myself, whether I look the other way because I can just keep my head down and not say anything to anybody and not point out the things that I know, or I can speak my truth. I can speak the truth as I see it, know it, feel it, and have researched it, and I can share what's on my heart and what's on my mind. And I guess that's the person I choose to be, right? That's why I started this channel. I was out there talking to myself. I didn't have an audience. I didn't have a responsibility. And I still don't. I'm not monetized. I don't have a large channel. When I speak, I'm speaking from my heart. I'm speaking to that person who comes upon this channel and needs to hear what it is I have to offer. And if you don't, you can scroll on by. You can move past to another video. There is no need for you to watch, right? I'm not harming anybody by telling them what I believe. There's somebody out there who's looking, who needs to hear it, who wants to feel their own validation of that. This is maybe what they already believe, and they're looking for somebody to say, yeah, you're not crazy. I see it too. I've been there too. And this is what I learned. And this is what I know. And this is how I can help you. And so I try to help people heal, not just their physical bodies, not just their mental minds and their emotions inside and their traumas, and help them heal as a whole, but heal their whole life. And so I can't censor part of my thoughts or my feelings or my emotions or part of my life. And so I guess I'm going to have to face the consequences. I'm not going to come out on this channel and continually put myself in a position where it's just going to be taken down, because that's counterintuitive. But when something comes up as it relates to health and healing that I feel is valuable information for me to give out, and I feel a responsibility to the people who have come to this channel to hear what I have to say, when it affects health and healing, and I've gone down my own personal road, so I am an expert. And so I feel that it's my duty, and I wouldn't sleep at night if I turned my head down, put my head down, didn't speak out on my truth, and didn't speak out on what I felt was my purpose, my soul's purpose, my authentic, thoughts and feelings on the video, because then I'm helping no one. And, I'm teaching in essence, even though my children don't watch this channel, I'm teaching in essence my children to not stand up for what they believe in, or not say what's on their heart, or not do or say what they feel is right because it might be judged or criticized or condemned, or, because it's easier not to. And that's just not the type of person that I want to be, or to have anyone else be. So these are my thoughts. I'm back. We're going to move forward in some health and healing, and we're really going to focus on personal power, taking our personal power and personal responsibility, because I think that is the number one thing when it comes to health and healing. It's absolutely, I've been looking high and low for a decade of healing as to what that magic pill is, what that magic answer is, how to heal yourself. And I really believe that being able to take your own personal power into your hands and become your healer, and be able to hear that intuitive voice that you have, and to be able to hear and trust your inner wisdom, is one of the greatest things that can actually move our healing forward in all areas of our life. So we're going to be focusing on, how do we take our personal power? How do we use it to heal ourselves? How do we use it to heal our relationships? How do we use it to heal our emotions? How do we use it to heal our mind? How do we use it to heal our physical body? And how can we become the healers of ourselves and our lives, and point our lives in the direction that we want it to go? It's really about personal power, personal sovereignty, personal responsibility for our bodies, our environment, our relationships, everything. So that's really where it stops. It starts and stops with you. So that's what we're going to move forward on. That's what we're going to focus on this year as we move into this calendar year. We head into fall, summer's behind us. I think it's really important that we all are able to access our own personal power for everything in our life that we have to overcome, all of the darkness and the healing that we have to do, but also what is to come in this fractured world that we're living in right now. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it around, and I will see you in the next video.